Hey, welcome to another video in our Setting Up Shop series. Today I'm going to be talking about the trying plane, or the jointer plane it's often called as well. Those two terms are thrown around different ways by different people. So this is what we're looking at, these big long planes. Like this. This one's 29 inches long. This one's like 26, and here's a metal bodied version, an old Stanley number 7. This is 22 inches long. So the way that I'm using the term, anything from this 22 to 30 is either a trying or a jointer plane. Historically, it's been used different ways. For Joseph Moxon only knows of the jointer plane. Later on, they only know of the trying plane. In the middle, there's this distinction made between the jointer and the long plane, and the long trying and the trying. I mean, it's kind of confusing. It doesn't really matter, but basically the whole idea is that when they made those distinctions, they had a jointer plane for jointing boards together to create an edge joint, and so that was the 30-inch plane, something like that, real long. And the trying plane on the shorter end, those were kind of reserved for flattening tops. You know, like if you had a tabletop and you wanted to flatten that from the foreplane, then you would use a trying plane. And the reason it's called a trying plane is because you're trying or testing the surface. As we talked about before, pen planes are essentially a jig. So the bottom, the sole, is theoretically supposed to be flat, dead flat, and then the iron protrudes out of the mouth. And as you come across the surface, if you imagine the top of the board is not flat, as you come across with this even plane of the sole, it's creating an even plane on the board. So you're trying to match the board to the bottom of the sole, and that's why it's called a plane. You're creating a plane with it, an even plane. And so when you have a trying plane, the foreplane comes before, and the trying plane is trying or testing the surface to make sure that it's an even plane. And so when it is, you can say it's tried and true. You've tried it, you've tested it, and you've proved it's true. It's a true flat. So that's the idea of a trying plane. So you can imagine the difference. If we use our foreplane 75% of the time, lots of rough work getting it close, the amount of time that this actually comes out and is put into use is not that much. And that's actually why it's harder to find a foreplane or a jack plane on the used market. They're usually kind of used up. But these jointer planes, you'll see these all over the place, screwed to the wall of Cracker Barrels and all sorts of things. These planes survived because they weren't used as aggressively. They were used sporadically. So in my work, honestly, I don't pick these up too much because I'm building pretty small scale. I use it for the top of a table, but even a table rail. A lot of times from a foreplane, you can see it's pretty straight, and I'll smooth it, and I'll just skip the trying plane. There's no reason to do that. So it is an important tool to have, though, because when you need it, you need it. Without that long sole, if you can imagine you have a small smoothing plane, and you have a board this long, you're going to be riding the wave of the inconsistencies. The whole point of the long sole is to bridge those consistencies to make it one continuous plane. So that's the idea behind these, and as you know, we're really into wooden bodied planes, so a Stanley will work just as well, but these tend to have really tight mouths, which are good and useful for really small shavings. But I think maybe you've noticed around here we like thick, heavy shavings because we're trying to work efficiently, we're trying to work fast. So I have found that all of my trying planes have bigger mouths. All these older wooden planes have wider mouths, and so the Stanley planes with those tight mouths, I just end up, the plane gets jammed a lot, and so that's one of the reasons I don't like metal bodied planes. The basic use of these tools is the same as the foreplane, except you're doing different operations. So you hold it the same way, you still have the same body posture like this. Your right hand is holding on, left hand up front, you're stabilizing front to back. And just like it was done with the foreplane, where you watched from the video where Mike was using the foreplane to bridge the high points, and he was traversing, he was planing across the board. It's the same idea here. You'll see, if you listen to the plane, you'll hear where it's hitting. You hear where the hollow is in the middle. So listen to this. You hear that? Too. It was right, and there's a hollow in the middle. It didn't cut in the middle. So let's hear them a little bit longer. Each will become a longer cut as I'm closing the gap of that valley. So listen to this. Okay, listen again. See that shorter distance there? I'll jump start it. So we should be pretty close to a continuous cut here. Did you hear that? So that's one continuous cut. And now when I have even pressure on the front and the back of the iron, the actual cutting iron, look at this. The bottom of the sole is creating the flat. So if I have a flat sole and I have even pressure, now I can trust that this has been tried and true. I can use a straight edge to test it and see, confirm it. But if this is flat, that should be flat. It's possible, of course, to use poor technique and screw it up. It's easy to screw anything up. But that's the whole idea, is you're bridging the high points to bring the high points down to the valleys, so it's even. So this style of plane, this is called a Razee, I think you would pronounce it. It just has this back that's cut down. The primary benefit to that, in my experience, is that instead of the center of balance being up higher, let me show you this one. So you can see the cutting action happens right down here, and my hand is back and up high above it. And if you wanted to be the most efficient, you would have your hand down low, pushing right behind where the action's happening. And so that's some of what this Razee plane is doing, is it's lowering your grip, so it's closer down to the plane of where it's cutting. And with my foreplane, I kind of do that as well. I'm always, instead of having my hand up high, I'm bringing it down low. And sometimes I'll even bring it down in the back to get your hand lower down to where it's cutting. So the Razee is helpful for that reason. But I don't find it to be a major difference. It's not a hurdle. I don't feel like you have to have a Razee plane. These tend to be associated with boat building for some reason. And maybe someone has a theory. I'm not sure what it is, but that tends to be the reason, or the association. So this one is my 29-inch plane. One thing I'll comment about these is where you saw with the foreplane, as Mike was talking about, these fore or jack planes, they have this cambered iron. So the cutting iron is quite rounded, maybe an 8 or 10-inch radius. And so with a trying plane and a jointer plane, it's going to be, if there's any camber, it's going to be a lot less. A trying plane, I like to have camber because I don't like digging tracks on the edges. But if you have a dedicated jointer plane that its only job is just to joint an edge, you don't need any camber. You can have a straight iron. Now there's a particular technique I like to use that you can actually, if you need to change the angle very, very subtly, I like to have a little bit of camber in my jointer because you can move the plane over and exploit the difference in thickness. So you can, on the high end, you can center the iron and then it fades out to nothing, rather than trying to laterally adjust your iron back and forth. So I like to do that. So actually my jointer plane does actually have a little bit of camber, but I mean a little, not a lot. So, and it's something I couldn't even really measure. I couldn't give you a measurement. It's subtle. So that's the basic idea. You'll see these things all over the place in antique stores because, like I said, they're used so little, so infrequently that they survive, and most of the iron is left and most of the body's left. They're always big and thick, as opposed to some of these older foreplanes. They're just worn down to nothing. They're just worn right away. And this has been resold. This old foreplane has been resold with a half-inch new sole on it. It was gone. So that's the difference. I mean, these planes are not used much, and it's good too because they're so stinking heavy. Even this wooden body plane, it's just a big block of beech. But it's quite heavy to try to muscle around. So you don't want to start with your rough sawn board and start doing this. That's going to start feeling like a metal body plane. That's one of the downsides to metal body planes, is that even in this 22-inch metal body plane and this 26-inch wooden body plane with the Razee, there's a difference in weight. You can feel it. And metal body planes are heavier. They're definitely heavier. And if you're trying to work efficiently, you got a metal plane with lots of lubrication on the sole so it doesn't get stuck, and you're just forcing. It's just a lot of work. You're much better off shifting to a wooden body plane. It glides across the surface and it's a lot lighter. So those are the factors with that. And lastly, so that's edge joining, but you can also use it for trying. So over here I have a smaller piece of cherry. And I'll show you on that, if I were to, this is a wonky piece of wood, but if I were to be planing this for a table rail and I wanted it dead flat, it's going to be the same operation. You can already see maybe that I took a few passes to see the condition of this, and it's cupped a little bit, and so there's a hollow in the middle, and the two ends have been planed already. So you'll hear this difference. So, hear that? So I'll show you what I would do in real practice. I wouldn't stand here all day long, right? I'd want to speed this up, because I want to be able to move on to building my table or whatever. And so I take my foreplane, get that end down lower, get that end down lower. Now I should have given myself a good jump start here. Did you hear that last cut? It's almost there. There's only the faintest bit of valley. There we go. That was a continuous pass. So these tools are not, you can't have the mindset that you have one tool, complete it, move that on, now pull out a different tool and use it. I'm jumping around to do different things. You saw I didn't want to spend a bunch of time with this, so I jumped to the foreplane. And then I jumped back to the trying plane. So that's important to remember. These tools should always be at hand and ready, so you can jump back and forth. I think that's pretty much it. The tool isn't used for too much, but what it does do, only that tool can do it. Only the trying plane can try a surface. Only a jointer plane can joint an edge predictably, I'll say that. So yeah, if you don't have one, you should definitely make sure you have one in your arsenal. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below. I will do what I can to help you out. Thanks a lot.